Hello everyone. So I usually just make videos on Grand Arena streams, but the introduction of Wat Tambor has made me make an exception to this rule. And I wanted to make a quick video just talking a little bit about Wat Tambor, his kit, just theory crafting some ideas, and just wanted to talk a little bit more about this character. This He's definitely one of the most interesting characters to be released in the wild. There's a ton of theory crafting potential, and I like to create new and interesting teams, and both on offense and defense. And this character really enables you to do that in a really excellent way. I actually managed to face a Wat Tambor in a Grand Arena today for the very first time, and seeing him in action, I started to think a little bit more about it after my Grand Arena got over, and I wanted to just share some of my thoughts with you guys. So let's just talk a little bit about his kit first before we move on to potential teams that he could be used on. Um, I definitely feel that his kit is extremely simple. In an era where all these kits are like paragraphs and paragraphs long, it's a very simple kit, and he does just a couple of things really really well. So he gives out text. There's three kinds of text that he gives out. So let me go in and just show you what's kit. So there's three specific texts that he gives out, which are over here. There's the first tech that you see over here is the med pack, which is basically a survivability thing. It just gives health and protection to the character, double protection if they're separatist. There's the tank tech, which is they recover 30% protection, dispel their own buffs, and taunt if they have protection, and only tanks can taunt. And this is typically the ability that Watt uses first when when it's under AI control. So this is a really important ability, and I've tried multiple times in Grand Arena, just a few battles, and all the time this ability is the one which is being used first. So that's an interesting thing to know. And the third and final ability is it's this particular tech is a attacker tech, and this basically enables you to gain 15% turn meter every time the enemy goes, and then the attacks ignore defense, and enemies can't be revived. Anyone who's killed by this one, by this particular character. So it essentially turns the character into a Django's unique Zeta, which prevents revives. It's essentially that, and it also has the added benefit of ignoring defense, which is great when you're trying to go against defense heavy characters. So this is something that has to be given to attackers. I'm not sure where in the order these two fall in, the med pack as the and the weapon mod, where they fall in terms of AI control. But one thing is for sure, the shield generator is the one which the AI tends to use first in battle. All right. Apart from that, there are a couple of other items in his kit where on his basic he cleanses a lot his allies, and heals them as well. And he also whenever any character with one of these three techs uses any ability at all, then he also ends up applying um, dots on the target enemy. So anytime that you're using an ability with one of the characters with tech, make sure that you target the target reticule on the right character that you want the dots to be applied on, because what is going to go and apply dots, and these dots can't be evaded, but they can be resisted. So that's something to keep in mind. The second ability over here. So the first three things I would recommend when you use Watt on offense is to use his first three tech and put them on three people on your team, and just so that the basic gets used more, and the characters in your team benefit from the three techs. And the three techs can be applied on any single character in the game, with the exception of Wat Tambor. He can't apply the tech on himself, but all other characters can have these techs. Now the second ability over here, the Discharge Energy, this one has a lot of synergy specifically to Separatist and Dark Side droids. So this part of his tech, this part of his kit basically it acts as a revive for all Separatist and Darkside droids, and it grants all allies protection over time. Now, protection over time is a new buff which has been created. It's something like health over time. On their turn, characters recover protection. So that's a great ability to have. There's also an overseer ability which is a unique where he just gives Separatist and Darkside droids a little extra max protection and max health. Um, so that's a brief overview of the kit. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The three texts are the main thing that you need to be aware of. Everything else usually happens automatically, but the three texts are going to be something which is going to enable a lot of really good theory crafting. Now, how do we mod him? Let me go back to the character screen and give a brief overview of how I think we should be modding Wat. A lot of his kit depends on speed, on going first, on going often. So I would just mod him for speed and survivability. A little bit of potency wouldn't hurt, because he does apply dots on his basic, which will be used quite a lot out of turn. Just because you'll have three characters in the team who will be using abilities all the time. So 3/5 of the team, whenever they go, Wat will be using his basic, which means dots will be applied on the team. So a little bit of potency also might help, in my opinion. So which is why this character Wat is not only healing based, but also has got a huge part of his kit synergy is dot based. His basic applies dots anytime any of these characters who have tech go, and his special, it triggers the dots anytime that he uses it. So anytime, so if any enemy has got, say, 5 dots on them, each dot uh, basically gets reduces the health by 5%. So when Wat uses this ability, 25% of the health will go just like that. So it's almost like a mini burn that you're using on all enemies to reduce 20% health right away, or an expose, which can inflict up to 20% damage. But obviously the damage over here would depend on the number of dots that you have. So that's a pretty powerful ability as well. Now, so speed. So I've talked briefly about the mods. Obviously, at lower gear level, the health is not going to be much, but you need to basically maximize the protection so that you can get this guy to survive longer. Now, he does have a zeta, one single zeta, where he takes a bonus turn at the end of at the beginning of battle. Now, is this zeta necessary? In my opinion, it's a low priority zeta. Just because if you don't have the zeta, his unique states that at the start of battle he does gain 30% turn meter. So what that means is if you and his base speed is pretty high. So without being at G12, for example, my Wat is at about 263 speed. So if you add so it's about 163 speed. So if you add a plus 10, a plus 100 speed set on Wat, he already is about 260, 270 speed before being at G12. And it's pretty easy to add to, go through your roster to try to see if you can salvage a plus 100 speed set. These days, speed sets are relatively easier. The plus 100 speed set will get Wat to about 260, 270, and his unique gives him 30%, even without the zeta, it gives him 30% turn meter at the beginning of the battle. So that means the 260, 270 speed is effectively going to be about 340 speed or something like that. So already, even with a plus 100 speed set, he will be outspeeding almost all the characters, and he will be taking a turn right away. If you get him to 270, 275, he'll be at effectively 350 speed, and he'll outspeed even the fastest of Darth Revan teams. I think the only characters that he won't be able to outspeed is Han in Rebel teams, where Han will be able to shoot first and stun Wat. And 100% of the times, Han is going to take a turn first before Wat, even though both of them technically are getting a bonus turn. And the other case in which Wat will be outsped is in BB-8 teams which have at least 2 or 3 droids which are really fast. In those cases also, those teams will outspeed Watt without the Zeta. But in all other cases, even with a +100 speed set, Watt is going to be faster than almost all teams, including the fastest Darth Revan teams. So the Zeta, which enables him to take a bonus turn 100% of the times, is only going to help him incrementally when he's going up against droid teams with BB-8 and other Zeta Watts where again there's a 50% chance based on a coin flip to go first. So there's very little incremental value in the Zeta in my opinion. The Zeta is not going to enable you to go before Han in any case. 100% of the time Han is going to go first. So in my opinion, this is a low priority Zeta, which can be, I'll probably get this done, but probably later down the line if I have, once I've completed my clones and Galactic Republic and a few other big ones. So that's basically my opinion on the Zeta. Now the question is, how does the AI handle this team? So let's take a quick look at that. So as I mentioned, let me just get in a few separatists over here to show you the battle in Grand Arena. So as I mentioned over here, the first tech that Watt uses is always going to be all right, so I'd excluded Watt in the team, but let me go ahead and take Newt out and get Watt in so that we can show you the battle. All right, so this is a typical separatist droid team. I'm just replacing Newt or Droidica with Watt, and as you can see, my Watt even with 250 speed is going much faster than my B1, who's close to 300 speed. So I've slowed this down to 1 speed, and you can see on auto the taunt, the tech that gets applied is the taunting tech, and it will get applied to the tank. And in a case where you have more than one tank in the team, like in this case where you have both B1 and B2 who are tanks, the tech is going to go to the tank with the maximum health and protection combined. So the healthiest tank essentially, and it's going to force the tank to taunt. Now, what if you don't have a tank in the team and you just go in just like that? In that case, what I've noticed through multiple tests in Galactic War is that the tech which gets applied is still going to be the taunting tech, and it will get applied on a random character. It's not necessarily the healthiest character, which is a little weird, but that's what's going to happen. So let me actually show you that in action. So let me go in and take a few non-tank characters in here. Let's take a few support characters. And let me take a few low-geared ones. So R2 is going to be the healthiest. But you can see over here, the taunting tech was the one which is applied first, and it is applied on Cup, who is really low in health and protection as compared to R2. So it's not necessarily the healthiest ally which gets the taunting tech if there's no tank present. But if there's a tank present, even if there are other healthy allies, let me show you that. If there's any tank present, let me take in a really weak tank in there. Even if there's any tank present in there, the first tech which gets applied is going to be on the tank. So Gamorrean Guard, even though he's the weakest character over here, he did get the 30% protection, the taunting tech. R2 did, when he stealths, he does keep an open the healthiest ally, so he tended to ignore that tech. But at least Watt's tech, from what I've seen through multiple pieces of testing, always get applied on a tank first and the healthiest tank. All right, so that's basically in terms of what gets applied over here in first. Now the second tech which gets applied is going to be either the med pack or the weapon mod, and I really haven't seen in what cases. I haven't really been in enough battles to see what gets applied next, whether there's any consistency in that. But I do know that the med pack typically gets applied to a low health, low protection character, probably the weakest character in the team, just to enable them to recover health and protection much faster. And it could be a support character, it could be an attacker. It's really it seems to be random. But the weapon mod, the third tech, that gets applied only on attackers, since they are the ones who tend to get benefit most from ignoring defense and gaining turn meter to attack enemies so that they can't be revived. So that gets applied mostly on attackers. Now, in the one battle that I have faced against Watt in my Grand Arena, it was a let me show you the team that it was. It was this particular team, which is Old Republic with Watt. Now, in that case, what happened was Watt went first. He had a Zeta, but even if he didn't have the Zeta, the Watt speed was about 280, which means his effective speed would have been close to 360, 370. So he would have gone first in any way, regardless of the Zeta. The very first thing he did was he put the shield generator, which is a taunting tech, on Zalbar, and Zalbar continued to taunt throughout the match. And the good thing about this tech is you can't really dispel it. It works similar to how debuffs work under Sith for Treya. So you can debuff Siths under Treya. You can apply stun, daze, shock, anything that you want. But the moment that the Sith's turn meter reaches full, they dispel all the debuffs on themselves. So something similar happens with the shield generator. You can apply whatever debuffs you want on the tank, but the moment they hit full turn meter, their all the debuffs gets cleansed, and they start they start clean. The only ones which can't be cleansed is locked debuffs, so that's something which potentially can be used as a counter. Also, the taunt gets whenever you try to dispel the taunt, when on a tank which has the shield generator tech, what ends up happening is the taunt gets dispelled, and because the character has protection, it gets reapplied again. So it's a little different from the way that old Ben's taunting is handled, as opposed to say something like Bosk. I think it's closer to what Bosk's is, which Bosk regains taunt if there's an enemy, if the weakest enemy on the enemy side has got protection. So what happens is Bosk loses taunt, but it gets reapplied. But in case of old Ben, his taunt is consistent. It still remains. So what that means is if you fracture old Ben or isolate him, he loses only one stack of the taunt, but it still remains behind. But in this case, for the Bactoid shield generator, the taunt disappears once you dispel it, but it gets reapplied almost immediately. So my theory is that if you apply buff immunity, the taunt will not get reapplied, and the buff immunity will still remain until the character takes its turn, or Watt manages to cleanse him, or someone else in the team manages to cleanse him. So I think that's what's going to happen, but we'll need more testing to really prove that theory, because the toughest tech over here when you're facing Watt on defense is going to be this one, the shield generator, because it basically creates a perma taunt. And any of the characters, there's so many tanks out there who it's both a pre-taunt as well as a permanent taunt, and there's so many tanks out there which can get really really irritating with a perma taunt like that. So that's why this is going to be the most the thing that you have to be able to manage the most in this team. All right, so let's now talk a little bit about the the kinds of teams that these guys that Watt fits under. I would say that there are three main teams that three different kinds of teams that Watt would fit under. One is obviously a separatist slash dark side droid synergy. Just because there's tons of synergy that Watt has with the separatist and dark side droids, he gives them extra protection at the start of the encounter, and he's able to revive them as well. So there's obviously additional benefit that you get with running a team like this. This is going to be the classic team, which you've just replaced Newt and Droidica with Watt. This is something that a lot of people have tried, and the prospect of having Grievous killing Grievous and having him revived by Watt, that's actually a pretty scary thought. And each of these revives, whatever droid Watt decides to revive, that's basically an extra turn that Grievous gets once you kill that droid again. So that's what makes this team really really good. Just because Watt can revive separatists and dark side droids. Um, Another team that I was thinking of that you could use Watt under is again another separatist team, which is with Sith Trooper in there. So Count Dooku lead. So if you decide to go with your traditional General Grievous team with the Newt, you may have some leftover separatists like these that you can put with Watt and Sith Trooper to essentially create another team, which could be really good, especially on offense. Um, Potentially, it could be a really good defense squad as well. But in terms of offense, what's going to happen is you Watt is immediately going to put the taunting tech on Sith Trooper so that he constantly taunts, and then the next couple of turns, he's probably going to keep the survival tech on Count Dooku just so that he remains alive, and constantly. It's basically as good as giving him the Zeta, because the Zeta is what regenerates all his protection. So the survival tech is perfect for Dooku because he is able to maintain full health and full protection at all times. And then the attacker over here is Jango Fett. So your Jango is going to end up getting the weapon mod tech, which basically means that even if you don't have the Zeta on Jango, with the weapon mod tech, anytime he makes a kill, the character is not going to be revived. Plus, he's going to ignore defense, and he already ignores taunt. So that's going to make him a really really tough attacker. So, and Droidica obviously is he's self-generating. He has his own protection, and he's able to one-shot characters just by the nature of his kit. So he's a self-sustaining character. But Dooku, Jango, and Sith Trooper will be the ones who will have um, these these techs, which will really be useful for them. An additional synergy in this team is Count Dooku. Anytime the enemy with Count Dooku lead, anytime the enemy falls below 100% health, he inflicts tenacity down and and excuse me, healing immunity, which can't be excuse me evaded or resisted. And Sith Trooper, he ends up hitting below protection and health, below protection. So that's an additional synergy that Sith Trooper has with Count Dooku. All right, so that's the second team that I thought of. So that's the first kind of team, which is basically running Watt with the other separatists or other dark side droids. Um, the other kind of team which Watt can excel in is dot based teams. Now, as I mentioned before, Watt has got tremendous dot synergy. Not only can he apply dots on his basic, and which he'll be doing a lot every time an enemy with the anytime an ally with any tech is going to go, he's going to apply dots on the enemy, which can't be evaded. So there's going to be plenty of dots on the team as is. So he's a natural fit into a dot based team. Plus, he's got the ability to instantly discharge all the dots at once, causing pretty good damage. So a team like this, which is exactly what I faced today in the Grand Arena, is a really good team for Wat as well. It can really weaken the enemy down. You've got Zalbar, who'll get the taunting tank, who'll get the taunting tech. Mission, who's going to get um, the attacker tech, the weapon blast tech mod, and Mission, who can ignore armor, is going to be extremely deadly. That's going to be pretty potent. And then you've got Karth or Candrus, depending on whoever is weaker. They are going to get the survival tech, and they're going to be around for a while. So that's going to be a pretty awesome team. Which basically what it does is it transforms a C level team into an A level team. Another dot based team that I was thinking about that could potentially be pretty good is the Darth Vader lead team. Now, in this case, with Darth Vader lead, you the dots are not going to expire, so it's going to make Watt's dots even more potent. Obviously, you've got Wampa and Sidious who got tons of dot synergy. They get a lot of they apply a lot of dots themselves, and they in the case of Wampa, his offense increases a ton if you have the Zeta and there are dots on the board. So what's going to happen over here in this team is whether they decide to use it on offense or defense. Sid Trooper is going to get the taunting tech first, and then if you're using it on offense, I would highly recommend giving the survival tech to Darth Vader next, because what's going to happen is anytime any enemy goes, Darth Vader is going to end up getting 5% health and protection, and he's going to end up healing. And the main target in a Darth Vader team is Darth Vader lead team is going to be Darth Vader, because you have to get him down so that dots don't stick anymore. So having a persistent, a healthy Darth Vader in the team is going to make the team really potent. And anytime the enemy takes a turn, in the case of Geos or Evox or any team like that, like clones, which takes tons of turns, they end up killing themselves. It's sort of like a mini Treya leadership, where if the enemy takes a lot of turns out of turn, they end up killing themselves quite easily. So it's basically, I have a feeling that this team is going to be able to counter a really good Bugs team pretty easily. That's the theory. Bugs won't be able to dispel Sith Trooper as long as he's got protection. Darth Vader will be able to apply dots, and even if they target Darth Vader, he's going to end up with each turn that they take, he's going to end up healing quite a lot. And then the Wampa can end up getting the weapon mod tech. Wampa ignoring armor is also an excellent proposition. Plus, he applies daze, which is great against bugs, clones, Ewoks, any of these teams which mass assist like that. And I think this can be used against tougher teams as well. Just have to figure it out. Plus, you've got Darth Sidious, who applies healing immunity on the basic as well. So that could be potentially a good squad. So that's the second kind of team. So the first kind of team to use with Wat is with Separatists and Darkside droids to utilize his kit completely. The second kind of teams to use with Wat is going to be dot based teams to utilize the dot synergy portion of his kit effectively, and then the third kind is basically you can mix and match. There are tons of different teams that you can put Wat in, where if you have four really good characters, Wat slots in perfectly as a really good fifth character, and enables the team to do pretty well. So an example could be Jango-led bounty hunters. Put the Wat goes first, puts the taunt on Bosk, and Bosk ends up taunting, and you could give the survival tech to maybe IG-88, and you could give the other tech to Jango Fett. Or you could give the survival tech to Jango Fett, because he's a separatist, he will gain double the protection. And you could give the weapons mod to either Boba or IG-88. Boba already hits hard and can ignore taunt, but IG-88 has got a really heavy AoE. Plus he's a dark side droid, which means he'll get a little extra protection due to Wat, and he can be revived by Wat as well. So this could be a potentially good squad as well. And again, constantly taunting Bosk is going to be pretty tough to get around. IG-88 also applies dots, so that's the extra dot synergy that you have. with that team. Another great team could be, you can just slot him in as a fifth in a CLS squad like this. Obviously, Scatter Rebel Pathfinder should get the taunting tech. You could, because that's a buff, anytime he dies, he revives again automatically. So that's going to be a great way to make Scatter Rebel Pathfinder a little more persistent. Han Solo obviously will get the attacker tech, the weapon blast mod, and again, having him ignore armor is going to be excellent. And Chewbacca, since you want him to hang around to assist, he's going to get the survivability tech, which will enable him to recover health and protection on top of what he already recovers due to his own unique. So having a Chewbacca survive for long, that would be a great. So the survival tech, the very first tech that Wat has, that is really great for those kind of things, which is when you want characters to hang around for long, where their presence in the battle itself is extremely important, like Chewbacca or Vader. Those kind of characters that you need to be around in the battlefield, they're the ones who should get the survivability tech. So just to show you let's take a look at, so let me actually go back and take a look at another team. So apart from Rebels, you can basically, there are multiple teams that you can plug and play Wat under. I usually tend to use Basti Wampa quite a lot. You could create since the Wampa does have a lot of dot based synergy, so Wampa and Wat can actually go pretty well together as well. You could apply the taunting buff on Old Ben, and with all the healing and protection regeneration that he'll be getting, plus the extra healing that Hermit Yoda provides, this team could be a handful as well. And then obviously you could also use him in a scoundrel squad. Now here you have Kira lead, and you have Jango under there, and Jango has tons of separatist synergy with Wat. Obviously Vandor is going to be able to revive Kira and L3. Wat is going to be able to revive Jango Fett, and Jango Fett has one free life anyway, so that's going to be helpful as well. Plus Kira's lead gives Jango an additional 20% crit chance, and he recovers protection as well, and he gets tons of offense stacking over here. So Wat's job in all these teams, Wat's main job is to apply at least one or two techs, and then even if the enemy kills Wat, the tech still remains, and that can still make your team extremely tough to manage. And the tech doesn't disappear until if you're in Grand Arena or TW, until you have a second battle. That's when the tech disappears if you've gotten rid of Wat. But otherwise, in the first battle, at least the tech persists even after Wat's death, which is great. And Wat is is a character which, unlike Hermit Yoda, who used to put his master's training at random on a character, which is why he's more useful on offense than on defense. Unlike that, Wat seems to be a little more consistent in his AI, putting the first tech on a taunting tank, which is exactly what is needed. So it seems to be that Wat is going to be a little more efficient in terms of a defense-based being in a defense-based team. All right, so now we've talked a little bit about what kind of teams you can potentially fit Wat in. Obviously, there's going to be many more teams, and as people unlock Wat and are able to gear him up and level him up, we're going to find a lot of interesting teams out there. So Wat is going to do a lot for enabling the diversity in your PvP matches than any other character so far, is my opinion. Now, to end the video, one final question. We're going to be seeing a lot of Wat teams on defense in TW in Grand Arena. So how do you counter Wat? It's going to be tough because Wat basically transforms even a weak team into quite a formidable one, and you need something specific to take it out. And if you don't want to waste a meta team against what you used to consider a weak team, we'll have to think of a few other things to try to take it out. One thought that I have is EP. EP lead. So Empire in general, I think, could be a good way to counter Wat. And I obviously haven't tested any of these out because I just unlocked Wat a couple of days ago. But one thing that uh, will be useful is shock. So EP team, especially if you have Dooku or even Dark Basti in there, all of these guys apply tons of shock. Shock prevents a taunt from being regained. So my gut is that if you apply a shock on, say, a taunting Zalbar who has the taunting tech, once his taunt is dispelled, um, say with a fracture or just a general dispel, in that case, it will not get reapplied again. So that's one thought that I have. Shock is going to enable you to do that. Plus, if you apply shock on the character who has the weapon blast tech mod, because that mod, that tech enables that character to regain about 15% turn meter anytime the enemy goes. So shock also prevents turn meter gain. So that's going to be a good way to counter the weapons mod as well. In an EP team, if you have Imperial Probe Droid developed as well with the Zeta, he avoids people from getting buffs if they're target locked. Problem is, yeah, Wat is going to end up cleansing a lot of these guys anytime they go ahead. But you need to be able to, but at least some amount of time you might be able to get away from the taunt and then be able to attack somebody else in the team. Um, the obvious things which are going to counter the taunting tech is going to be things like fracture, isolate. Um, those kind of things are going to really mess with the ability of that tech, just because they are locked debuffs, and they can't be cleansed by Wat or by the character when their turn comes around. So those are going to be really powerful, and I think you may need to, if you're using EP, for example, you may need to bring in Thrawn to control the character with the taunting tech. What else? So the other thing which I think may be able to, I mean, obviously Darth, Revan, Treya will counter these guys pretty well, but if you don't want to waste those guys against it, you can get characters which go around taunt, because you need to be able to target Wat to take him out early, um, because the taunt is going to be persistent. So you need people who can go around taunt like Jedi Knight Revan, or who can mark a character and then you can mark Wat and then go ahead and finish him off, or something like a bounty hunter team where you've got two characters who can go around taunt, Boba and Jango, uh, and if you are able to go fast and take care of Wat before he applies too many of those mods, the mod techs, then you may stand a chance. The other thing obviously is CLS team, because Han shoots first and he's always going to go before Wat. Even if Wat has got the Zeta, Han is going to shoot first. So what you can do is stun Wat and reduce his turn meter, and then followed up with CLS who can ignore taunt and go and hopefully take care of Wat. Now this is definitely going to work. In a you can two shot Wat with the CLS and Han and with Chewie's assist, as long as Wat is lower geared and lower start, 5 6 stars maybe with at G11. But once you start seeing the G12 G13 Wats, the rebel strategy might not work, but that remains to be seen. At least you'll be able to slow him down with a stun and turn meter reduction. So those are two counters that I can think of: EP, CLS, and obviously the Revens and Treya. Another relatively cheaper counter could be JTR. Now JTR, obviously you won't be able to dispel the taunt with JTR's wave, but JTR does have locked healing immunity, and that's another very important locked debuff. So whichever tank gets the taunting tech with JTR's healing immunity, uh, you should be able to get that character down in time, because the healing immunity is applied for 2 turns. So Watt will not be able to cleanse it, and the character won't be able to cleanse it once they get their turn. So you have up to 2 turns to get rid of the taunting tank with the help of JTR and the BB-8 and the rest of the resistance team. So if you're able to do that, then you get rid of the taunt, and then you're free to target whoever else you want. Watt may have already applied 1 or 2 mods on the other characters by that time, but at least you would have gotten rid of the tank, and you should be able to focus on the rest of the characters and take them down. So that's one theory, and I think Holdo will be pretty useful in that squad, just because she'll be able to apply daze and prevent the character with the weapons mod from gaining turn meter every time that your characters go, because the resistance team is going to go quite frequently, and you don't want the weapons mod guy to end up getting a lot of turns and creating havoc. So JTR could be another option that you have to counter this. Now, unfortunately, there's no other locked buff immunity in the game apart from Darth Revan. So so any buff immunity that you apply will end up getting cleansed by Watt, most likely. So that probably won't work. But yeah, that's and I'm sure we'll discover some really good counters along the way. These are just some of my initial thoughts. Some of these may work, some of these may not, but at least the initial impression that I had with fighting Watt today was he's going to be a formidable character, and he's going to be a really fun character to play. So I'm really looking forward to some more of this of testing with this guy. All right, so those are just some of my thoughts on this. Let me know in the comments if you have what you feel about the content that I presented today. If you have additional thoughts on what could be some good teams to use him in, what could be some good counters to him. Any thoughts that you have, it'll be great to just have that conversation. I'm looking to get more ideas on this, because the next Grand Arena, which is starting tomorrow, I'm going to be definitely keeping Watt on defense, or keeping him on offense to try some interesting some of these offensive teams that I've been talking about. So stay tuned for the next few Grand Arena matches, because I'll get to showcase some of the teams that I talked about. I'm specifically curious about the Vader Wampa team with Watt. I think that has the potential to take down some really heavy teams. So stay tuned for more Watt action in the upcoming Grand Arena Championships. All right, thanks for joining me. This was a fun video to do. Just a lot of thoughts that I wanted to get out there, but I enjoyed making this video. I will catch you guys in a few days once the second week of Grand Arena starts. See you later.